One of the best ways you can get better performance and playback from Fusion comps, especially when they get heavy, is to save them out using a thing called a saver node. It's basically a render node specifically for the Fusion page. Now, in the past, it's kind of been a pain in the butt because you have to manually type in an absolute file path. But inside of DaVinci Resolve 21, one of the new features that was announced and works really, really well is the fact that we have metadata variables, so we can drive the naming and the location of a saver just based off of things like the project name, the timeline name, the clip name, and the source name. And I'm going to share with you today exactly how I'm using it and how much it can improve performance for you on your next project. Let's take a look at how it's done. The metadata variables are a little different on the Fusion page of DaVinci Resolve versus the rest of Resolve. The way it works, I'm going to hit Shift Space, Saver Node, which is just like a render node. I'll hook that up. And what you do is in the file name, the file path area over here, what you do is you type %, and then you don't see any variables like the rest of Resolve normally would. What you do is you hit the curly braces. So that is Shift and then the left bracket. And then you'll notice it pops up, do you want metadata for Resolve or a thing called metadata? Well, we want the Resolve metadata, not the metadata one is referring to metadata you can derive only on the Fusion page, but I want the Resolve metadata. So I'll go down and select that. And then what kind of metadata do we want? This is the same list of metadata you would get from like the deliver page. I want to start with project name. So if I start typing that in, project name, it automatically closes up the curly braces. And the value this gives you is this name right here, color matching inserts demo. Now the whole premise of why this works and how it automatically places things in your job folder for you has to do with the fact that on disk, in your Finder, you have a folder where you store everything for your project, and that name right there matches the DaVinci Resolve project name. So if you build your projects out this way, you can automatically set this as a preset so that everything just goes in there and is named uniquely, and you don't have to think about it at all. You don't have to like hard type in a specific absolute path every time. It's really, really helpful. So that is the first piece of metadata that we take a look at. But we don't actually have a location in the saver for this to go yet. You actually need to put some information before this so it tells it where to write the sequence out to. And by the way, these are EXR sequences, so you do have to get used to working with image sequence files, not QuickTime movie files. But once you do that, it's not a problem at all. What you want to do to find the location of where we store our projects, which is this right here, is I would go back to the folder right before it, right click on it on a Mac. You can either hold Option to get copy projects as path name, or if you have this path bar down here, you could also right click on the word projects and get that path name. That's another way to get to it. And I would just go to a text edit and paste it in. So I've already done this once as I was practicing, but this is the beginning path of the location of where it's going to write the files out to. If you're new to file name and directories, stuff like that, basically a slash indicates a new folder, like hierarchy level. So if I put like another slash there, that's where I would start to put the metadata variable. That would be from right here. So Command C, Command V, and you would just start building this out using slashes and the rest of the metadata that is going to make everything unique. Now, because I know you probably can figure this out for your own from here on out, I'll just quickly walk you through the metadata that I use that I think is most useful. So the variable settings that I personally use, let's load up a new saver here, Shift Space SV, as I use DWAB compression most of the time. And what that basically means is once you've loaded the node down here, go to the Format tab, DWA 256 lines, Resolve supposedly prefers this to DWA, that is the 32 line, that's DWAA. So I choose this 256 line. Basically, this is like 6 to 10 times smaller than a lossless EXR compression, which would be like Zip or PIZ. Those are two popular ones. I like this a lot because, storage ain't cheap right now, right? In fact, I turn this up to 150 compression. Higher numbers are more compressed. The default is 45. So you might want 45 for production work, but this has worked great for me, especially for demoing and teaching. And then the file tab. So I have this DWAB 150, the file tab. This is the long string that I'm currently using. I'm going to hit Command C and paste this over here into the text edit so you can see the full string, and I'm going to walk you through what everything in it means, because it's a lot. But remember, you don't have to remember all this. Once you set this up for your specific folder structure, you're good to go, and you just can hit a hotkey to render. So volume, CVT, CVT YouTube, projects, those are all hard-coded up to that point, right? In fact, looks like this on a Finder. Why don't I just move this up so you can see both at the same time? All right, so projects, you can follow this path down here. Then we have DaVinci Resolve project name, which is this, let's expand this, color matching inserts demo, color matching inserts demo. This is the most important part, right? Make sure those match. And then after that, we're going into a hard-coded name here that I'm calling savers, because you might have a bunch of other elements in your project folder, right? You probably will. So I've got one that's called savers, and this is where all the EXR renders are going to live for a specific project. This will either be generated for you by just the fact that this is in the string, or if it already exists, it just places them there, right? So the fact that we have these slashes here says, hey, if a folder doesn't exist here, I need to make one that's called that. The next one, I'm going to use the resolve timeline metadata field, which is what it sounds like. It's the timeline or sequence name from the edit page. And the way that I like to work is I like to have one VFX, or, depends on the project, but one main best length version of all the shots that have unique names on them. And I work from that, I render everything out, and then that gets conformed to all the sequences for a commercial that might be using that shot. So typical commercial, you got 6s, you got 15s, you got 30s, a 60, some, editor's cut. They may all have different lengths. So this is the longest version that's on my VFX timeline. And it gets a unique name. And the other thing I'll mention about the timeline name is keep it short. 3-4 characters is best, because it will write that into the beginning of the file name here. So you can see star was what I had set for this. So I had a shot here that started with Starbucks. So it's just easy to search for. And the other thing that's really nice about that is it easily is visible to see the rest of the version numbers if you do clip name next, which is what I want to talk about next. So let's look back here at text edit. So it goes resolve timeline name, then resolve clip name. So clip name is the instance of the clip that's on the timeline. It's not the name of the clip in the bin. It's not the name of the clip on the hard disk. It's the name of the clip on the timeline. And the reason this is so important, this is like a VFX shot name. The reason this is important is because you might have multiple VFX shots that were from one 8-minute long clip that the director ran for. Very common, right, to run in like 8-10 minute shots, or not shots, 8 to 10 minute, like before they stopped and started recording on the camera. So this allows you to manually go in with what's called the clip name and have unique VFX shots for each one. And they're at the beginning of the name down here with Clips View enabled, so that you can see the shot number and also manually iterate versions. Now the versions are iterated kind of as a manual procedure where you say create new composition, you keep iterating up. And on the timeline, the way these are dealt with and what the clip name refers to is in the inspector, the file tab, it's this name that's right over here. I have a script that I've talked about in my shot publishing tutorial. I'm going to post a link to that again, but basically it's free. It basically will increment these numbers for you so that you can have unique names for every clip instance on your timeline. Enough about that. That's the clip name. Now, the one after it is more like you might think about if you're used to round-tripping workflows where you need a source name on something. So that's what I'm using. So it goes clip name, then underscore source name. Pull my Finder up again. And on these clips, because they came from a Blackmagic video assist, the source name is actually called CVT 2607. Basically, it's the date and timestamps, and then 6. That was what was written to the hard disk. Now, in a high-end movie workflow, you're probably not going to write a source name into it, but for commercials, and you have got a lot of people switching hands on stuff, this is a way to track back easily to what was the original file name. It still exists in the metadata of the clip when we render this out. So that is kind of the gist of the start of it, but you notice we have sort of a repeat here. It goes timeline name, clip name, source name, then a slash, and that's because we want to organize each individual shot here into its own folder. So some of these, you'll notice there may be multiple renders for them. Here we go. So this one right here, this Starbucks 20 shot, there's 3 different renders in there, and that's because I ended up needing 3 different savers along the way. So the next piece of it is at the very end of that string, I have a unique identifier for each saver. So one's denoise, one was paint, and one's called savers, basically right before I go back to media out. So take a look at the file string. Basically, you take this whole chunk right here, you copy it, you put a slash, you paste it, and then at the very end, we're just going to put a little unique identifier to say, okay, this is our saver 1. And then you might have a saver 2 or saver 3, or you could be more explicit and say, this is my denoise saver. And then you do that one more time so that all the image sequence files for that are placed in their own folder. So this has 50 items in it, right? There's 50 frames in this shot. That keeps everything really organized. So I've taken that again, another slash there that makes a new directory, new folder. And then we go percentage, timeline name, clip name, source name, saver 1. And then at the very end, this is also kind of important. What I suggest you do is you do 2 periods and then EXR. The reason I do 2 periods at the very end of the extension is that's the file separator that is compatible with Maya. And it basically says, okay, at the end of this, it's going to put a break, an actual period in it. And you can see this. And then it's going to put the frame number. Now the frame number, this is also kind of important. In DaVinci Resolve Fusion, if you ever need to add handles to the beginning of a shot, you don't want it to start at frame 0. So the way I have frame number set up in DaVinci Resolve is under the project settings, Shift 9, Fusion tab, set this as something positive. I include my handles on the edit timeline, so I do 4 frame handles. I set this to 997 so that even if I need to add more handles eventually to the beginning, I'm not going into negative frame numbers, which makes the loaders not work also good, right? So now that you have this entire path all set up, let's just try this on a completely new shot. I'll show you how it would work on this media managed me timeline. I would start by renaming this so that it's only 4 characters. I'll call this tutorial for whatever. This is a tutorial. I'll come to my script that's going to rename them for me. So it's going to be scripts, shot namer, and it'll start right at the beginning. I'll say rename. And let's say I was going to do something to this shot right here. I would come over here, put an underscore, give it a version number. So that would be version 1. I'd open the Fusion page. And you can see that's nice and visible down here in the clips view. If it's not, you can just double click those. It cycles through basically the comp number, the edit page number, and the codec. So I'd leave that so you can see the version number. I'm gonna hit V to get rid of that subview. Before I render my first saver, I would probably turn this into linear. EXRs do best in linear. That's kind of what they're designed for. So I'll use a Cineon log tool, which is going from slog3 to just slog3 linear. I would hit SV for saver, and this was already in here because I pasted I pasted this into here, and then I right clicked and I said settings, save default. In fact, you can save other presets if you want other names in it. And now I just hit a hotkey to render all savers, and all that work up to that point is done. Now the hotkey I'm using, if you don't want to use a hotkey, it's found under the Fusion setting here called Render All Savers. Have it set to Command-Shift-R, so let's go ahead and do that. It's going to render pretty quick. I'm going to show you where it's rendering these out to. So it was already looking at the project name, Savers folder, and it started creating a new shot for me here called Tut Shot 1 or Shot 10, whatever, Saver 1, and it's writing all of these out one by one into my Lucidlink files storage, which, you know, if I'm working at home one day, that's great. And I go to the office, it's all the same location. I don't even have to move the files around, which is awesome. And then once this is done, we'll just load it back into here. Now, to load this back into your Fusion comp, there's 2 ways to do it. One is with the loader and one's with the media pool. Now, I'll warn you, one is better than the other for playback reasons. If I were to just drag this folder and load that into my flow over here, what that did is it actually loaded it into the media pool in the currently open bin. So if I open my media pool, you'll see there's actually this EXR sequence that's been loaded. This can work, and it is included in things like the media management of Resolve, but it's tied directly to the project library. And one of the things that also causes is it reuses the DaVinci Resolve media engine for playback. And because the Fusion page is limited on resources, one of the little tricks you can do to get better performance on the Fusion page is to not let DaVinci Resolve touch your media. As weird as that sounds, the way you do that to get better performance on like higher bit depth footage is to use a loader node instead. And so you do lose the media management benefit, but I think it's worth it because I can actually play back high resolution, high bit depth files easily. So that's just done by hitting shift space LD for the loader node. You navigate to the location. It finds the last location you had loaded. And with this window open on a Mac, you can just use things like the command up arrows to navigate up and down between different, sequences in here. So this one was called, it was already there. Was it toot for tutorial, shot 10? And to load is different than in Resolve, you select a folder to load an image sequence. In Fusion, you just select an image and it sees there's a string. So this is the first frame of the sequence. It loads it up for us. And, you can always control your cache down here. But one of the things I love about using loader is with these EXRs is I'm going to be able to get full RAM cache previews without any trouble. And again, these also are saved if you increment your clip versions for iterating. Hey, thank you so much if you made it to the end. My name is Chadwick. I'm a DaVinci Resolve Master Training Partner here in New York, and I do high-end finishing for commercials. But because there is so much more to learn, I'll see you in the next video.